Hey y'all, and welcome back to Raccoon Creek Homestead. Today I am going to do a recap of the 2022 year and kind of give a little bit of insight on where the majority of our funds went. Did we make any money in 2022? Did we spend a lot of money? And just kind of to go over, is it worth it to get into chickens or goats or gardening, and some ways to recoup some of the funds that you may have lost. So every year I keep track of literally everything homestead related that we spend and that we make. And I track that in an Excel spreadsheet. And I have it broke down to, I even count how many eggs we get in a year. So like last year, and granted, we had probably 40 chickens or so, but we had 443 dozen eggs laid here on the farm. And again, that may sound like a crazy amount, but we also sold them. We ate them, we gave some away. Some of them went to hatching eggs. Some of them were broody eggs that maybe didn't hatch. And it's part of it. But chickens also, I know right now with the price of eggs, it's absolutely insane to think of like, oh, I don't want to pay $5 at the store for a dozen eggs, but financially, is that a better investment, or should you raise them yourself? Now, if all we did was feed our chickens and sell the eggs, we would have broke even. But you also have to include the bedding, the housing. If you're raising chicks, do you need a brooder? Do you need somewhere to put them? Do you have buyers, or do you have literally dozens and dozens of eggs sitting on your counter or in your fridge? And that's kind of something to think about. Like I said, if all we did was feed them, no house, no nothing. If all we did was feed them and sell the eggs, we would have broke even. But I bought an incubator, which it's nothing big, it's nothing fancy. But the year that we started, we had to buy the coop, and I didn't want to get one of the like couple $100 coops that hold 5 or 6 chickens, which is great for a family farm. But chicken math is real. You think, oh, I'll just get a couple. Well, then you go to Tractor Supply to get feed, and you hear the little cheep, 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 cheep in the boxes, and now all of a sudden, you're like, oh, I'll just get, a couple. Oh, well, the minimum is 4 or 6, so now you have 4 or 6. And you could have completely doubled your chicks from what you had originally anticipated. Well, the more chicks and chickens, the more feed, the more bedding, and not to mention the time. Do you have time to clean out the coop and gather eggs every day? Especially when it's, like right now, it's 28 degrees outside. Or would you rather sleep in and not have to worry about it? And that's something to consider. So how many dozen eggs could you buy at the store, even if they're $5 a dozen, versus buying the coop house? That's something to consider. Is it worth just going and finding someone local that sells eggs and buy from them? Support them. And I'm not saying give them like $2 a dozen for their eggs, because let me tell you, with the price of feed right now, it's up there. And that's just chickens. And I joke and say that they're like the gateway animal, because I feel like they are. That's kind of what got us into goats. But before we get into goats, let's talk gardening, because you can supplement some of that chicken feed with garden scraps. But do you have space to garden? Do you need to buy containers? Then you have dirt, seeds, if you're doing raised beds. Or is it more efficient to go to your local farmer's market? Granted, I'm one of those that I'm the one at the farmer's market trying to sell to people. And a lot of it is, how much time do you have? Do you have the time to go every week and set up? My seeds are funded strictly from the farmer's market. I start my seeds specifically for, like, there are things that I grow to take to the farmer's market that we don't plant or eat, unless they just don't sell, like habaneros or any other really spicy pepper. Or last year, I grew them and I gave them away to a friend and they made hot sauce. Or I gave them to my chickens because chickens don't have that, like, oh, that's really hot. They don't have that. So that's what I did. I got a pack of seeds from, we'll say even the Dollar Tree, and they're 4 for $1. So I spent $25 in seeds. I bought a stack of the red Solo cups, the generic ones from Sam's Club, and I think like 200 or so, maybe even 400, was less than $10, and then a bag of dirt. And I got good dirt. I'm not skimping on that because I want my plants to have a good start. And I had my seed starting station, which we're halfway through January. I'm going to be setting that up here pretty soon. And for $1's worth of seeds, you know, if you get the basics, peppers, zucchini, cucumber, tomatoes, you spend $1. I mean, I probably spent less than $20, but then you turn around and you sell them for $2 each start. It adds up really quick, and it completely funded all of my seeds last year. And I spent more than I cared to admit, but that also allowed for me it cushioned my chicken expenses. So because I had a profit in one, but a deficit in the other, they averaged out pretty even. So yay, I'll take it. Plus any of the food that, say maybe a bug got to in my garden on a tomato, or it, you know, maybe it fell off before it was ready. Maybe it rained a whole lot and there was a bunch of splitting and cracking, or it was just so cat-faced and I didn't catch the bloom, that I just threw it to the chickens. And that saved me on feed as well. Plus, I learned that I'm not a big fan of, and don't come at me, the noodle beans. I'm not a big fan of them, but my goats love them. So I'm growing those again just for snacks for my goats. This is where last year was our big expenditure. Now let me stop and take a break, and let me say the animal itself is the cheapest part of farming or homesteading. Okay, I'm going to say it again because it's that important. The animal itself is the cheapest part of homesteading. You can get an animal, it's a one-time, okay, so let's say I spend, we'll say $100 on a goat. Not papered, nothing crazy. Granted, mine, I wish I spent $100. I spent a little bit more, but they were papered, and that's fine. My son's going to use them for 4-H. We're going to go to shows. We're going to, you know, I want mine to stay in milk, so I bred them. I'm not really stressing that part. But let's say we spend $100. Great. I have a goat. Is it going to live in the house with you and you're going to take it out? Because I don't think that's real the way to go. Plus, goats need a friend. Goats are herd animals. You need more than one. So now your $100 just went to $200, which again, not bad. But they need somewhere to live. They need shelter. Okay, let's say I have the majority of the stuff already. I build it out of things that I already have. Maybe I had to get some screws. But if you don't, did you use lumber? Which is kind of pricey right now. They need a roof. Goats don't like being wet. So maybe you had to give them a floor. We'll say, again, for easy math, that you had most of the stuff and you spend another $100. Well, now we're up to $300. But you don't want them to run off, so now you have to have a fence, and they need a decent amount. So let's say that you need to buy a roll of field fence. That's $350, at least in Indiana this year. So now your $100, that you just spent on a goat, or maybe it was even given to you for free, just cost you over $500. Now, in our case, we ended up spending significantly more than that. Yeah. So let's see. And on top of goats, you're going to milk them. Great. What are you going to milk them on? Do you need a milk stand? Okay. Oh, on the fencing, aside from the roll, how did you get it to stay? Did you have to buy T-posts? Are they in milk? Maybe they need a little bit of extra supplemental, like a grain feed. Are you trimming their hooves just by themselves? You need the trimmers. You got to strain the milk if you're going to drink it. So now you need filters. We'll even be optimistic and say you already have like canning jars to store your milk. Great. In Indiana, you can't sell the milk for consumption on either human or pet. So let's turn it into soap. Well, that's great. Do you have everything you need for soap? Because that's kind of what got me. But by the time you add a bucket, a strainer, the milk stand, fencing, T-posts, minerals, a water tank, a gate. Did you build it yourself? Did you have everything, even the hinges? A hay feeder, which Jeremy made our big hay feeder out of stuff we already had left over from the garden box. So that was awesome. And about half of it for the shelter he had, but he had to buy some 4x4s. And our roof on it, I've never shown it, but it's 2 different colors because it was left over from stuff we already had. And I didn't care because no one sees it. And then in addition to that, let's see. Oh, hey, are they going to forage? That's great during the summer, but what about during the winter when nothing's growing? That's where our big expenditure's coming. Let's see. Are you a part of the American Dairy Goat Association? There's a fee to be a part of that in membership. Are you registering your goats to yourself? Oh no, one of them has worms and you have to treat them for it. There's another expense. And a salt block, minerals. Uh-oh, your goat had a baby and it was a boy and you want to keep him, but you don't want a buck. So you have to, I bought a bander myself and I did it. They were like $10, but you see that this stuff adds up. Let's see, I added sunflower seeds because their skin was getting a little flaky. Bag of feed. Again, what are you going to hold the feed in? Where are you going to keep your hay? Oh, let's see. We added 2 more goats. And then you also have bedding for them because they like to be clean too. So you got, oh, are you breeding in-house or do you have to take them and pay a stud fee? Like I said, this stuff, I'm telling you, oh, kidding supplies, it adds up. It's all like if you were going to start a business, it's all the startup fee. I spent a couple $1,000s as a deficit. Most homesteads are at a deficit. Now, did I get a lot of milk? Absolutely. Was I able to make goat's milk soap and recoup some of it? Yes. But it's the startup. Are you able to find people that'll buy it? Like in our area, there's already a well-established person that sells goat's milk soap. And she's wonderful and I love her. And are you gonna try to compete with that? Or are you just gonna try to go a completely separate way? Are you gonna maybe drive to a different town that doesn't have someone selling goat's milk soap? That's kind of where there's a lot to think about when you get into animals. We're adding pigs this year just for feeder pigs. And that's fine because they're just for us. But strategically, I could raise 1 pig just for me, myself, our family to go in the freezer. But I'm going to raise 2 or 3 in the hopes that, okay, so if I keep 1 and I sell 2, then 1 pig will pay for my butcher fee and the other pig will pay for the feed for the other 3. So now I get pork in my freezer for free. I feel like homesteading, there are so many aspects to think about that we don't necessarily think about firsthand. Just like gardening. You can put a garden anywhere, but are you going to have to fight weeds? I feel like the convenience of, okay, I'm going to do raised garden, but now I have to have the upkeep of building the bed. And with wood costs being what they are right now, it's a little pricey. If you're going to be somewhere and you're going to stay there, this year I plan on putting a really big chunk of money towards our garden because I got very overwhelmed by the weeds last year, especially starting out when it's a field and you're competing against these weeds and these grasses and like thorns, which that's what got me. I can't compete against thorns. Even with gloves on, I mean, like they're piercing. And do you have enough sun? Are you prepared to be out in the garden on almost daily pulling weeds and fighting bugs? I'm still learning. I've been gardening, I probably started about 5 years ago, and I do not consider myself even remotely close to being a well-knowing, all-knowing gardener. I feel like I'm still in the beginner phases because I'm still learning. What tomatoes do I like? What tomatoes can well, which paste tomatoes definitely. What do you like? What don't you like? Do you like white, yellow, orange, pink, blue, purple, red? There are so many different options. I don't know what I like. I don't know what my family likes. I will say I don't like to can any of the tomatoes with the anthocyanins. That's the color, like the purple, because it makes a really weird looking spaghetti sauce, and it's just one of those things. Put it as a slicer tomato. But, and even like with the garden, even with having all of that, I bought a lot of seeds the first couple years because I didn't know what I'd like. So I bought like a bunch to try. Now I know pretty much what I like. So now I'm going to grow and sell at the farmer's market the ones I don't really care for. And then that leaves me space for all the ones that I do. I also, in my tracking, I gave myself a home credit. And in my home credit, eggs, because I paid for the feed, I paid for the chicks, I took care of them. Why wouldn't I give myself a credit? Because that's something I didn't have to buy at the store. Same thing with milk. We raised turkeys and chickens. A couple chickens went in the freezer. Milk. And then we canned green beans and tomato sauce. I made egg noodles, cowboy candy, broth, and then what we ate fresh. Because again, I didn't buy this stuff at the store, and I really felt that I deserved, like I did all this work. So to me, this was my paycheck. And with everything, I had almost $1,000 that I saved just on like my grocery bill. $918 and some change just on my grocery bill. That was my paycheck, so to speak. That was my time. And although, yes, that did really make the overall total not so overwhelming, but even the money pulled in from the farmer's market, we were still at a loss last year in 2022. My goal this year is to produce at least 10% of our food that we eat in-house. So I don't want to go to the store for at least 10%. I'm pretty sure I did that last year, but I still haven't quite figured out how to track it unless I just do like a weekly where it's like, okay, I had this and this and this, and that's what we did. So maybe I made a roast and all of the vegetables came from the Homestead. Check. Maybe I made something completely store-bought, but I made a loaf of bread. There's my 10%. Check. Maybe I made a smoothie and the strawberries that I put in it and the blueberries came from the Homestead. Or maybe I bought all the fruit, but the milk came from the goats. Check. I feel like it's so doable. And each year I plan to increase it like 10% this year, then 25, then 30. But is that something that you're interested in? I know for me, with the crazy way that the economy is right now, I feel so good having, even if everything else failed and all I had to eat was eggs, would I get burnt out? Yes, I absolutely would. But I still have food to feed our family. That's something else to consider. Where are you and your family? Where are you at in, and I don't want to say prepping because I feel like prepping has a very negative connotation to it. But if you lost your job right now, do you have enough food that you could make it if, maybe you don't get a paycheck or two? until you get your new job. And that's kind of where I feel putting food back, and especially knowing where it came from, knowing that it wasn't sprayed with pesticides. And I know I'm kind of all over the place, so just stay with me. But that's something that, I mean, working part-time, I feel like that's how I contribute to the rest of the home. And that's something else. If you can use things that you produce instead of like, oh, I need a side hustle, I need to make money. Instead of making money, try and save money. So like where we did the home credit and I grew all the vegetables. Well, my seeds were free because I sold so many plant starts, made my seeds free, which in turn made all the plants I grew for my garden free, which is amazing. The eggs, all of the extra stuff may have cost, but feeding my family the eggs that are antibiotic free, medication free, it made it to where, granted, yes, my time was free, but my time paid for the eggs. Same thing with, we have a clothesline. So that saves me money on my dryer, on my electric bill. We heat with a wood stove. We get the wood from the land, which we're completely surrounded by trees. And we typically, the trees that we take are ones that are on their last leg anyway, or maybe a big storm like broke it off. We take down the tree, all of the leaves go to the goats because they love them. And then the branches that are so small, we turn that into mulch. And then the rest of the tree goes into firewood. So we literally use everything that we're given. And it heats our home. It feeds our goats. Everything is supplemental if you do it and you think about the whole process, the complete cycle. The only thing on the farm that doesn't necessarily bring in money are the dogs. I spend a decent amount in dog food, but the company and the love and the fact that like we've got a couple big dogs and I wouldn't want to come into the house without being invited, so to speak. Like Kita, I wouldn't want to tussle with her. Riker outside keeps all of our livestock safe. Now granted, I wouldn't put him in with any of them, except, well, he does okay with the goats. But he keeps everything. Look, knock on wood, I have not yet lost a bird to a predator, aside from my mother-in-law's dog who thought, oh, it was a toy. But that's a story for a different day. And it wasn't necessarily malicious. It was just, hey, like, let me carry you around. And it was a well-placed tooth. But again, story for a different day. So just a few things to consider. And like I said, do it. It's so worth it. Just know what you're getting yourself into. Be prepared that if your goat gets, like my goat, right before that really bad winter storm where the wind chill was below 35 degrees, one goat got pink eye in one eye. Granted, she probably put her face and got poked with hay or something to that effect. But I had to run out and get medication an hour before that crazy storm, and I had to give her the shot. Could I have called the vet and had them come out and do it? Yeah. Would they have done it nearly as quickly? No. Would they have come out at all with that storm coming? I don't know. Would I have had to wait a few days? Maybe. But like I said, I literally spent, plus the vet bill that comes along with that. So for $20, I got the meds, I gave her the shot, and guess what? She's perfectly fine now. I don't medicate my chickens. I don't medicate my dogs. In that aspect, they all get their shot. The dogs get like all of their rabies shots and whatnot. But the goats, it's like, oh, I'm going to do it holistically. But goats are fragile. You look at them wrong and they're like gone. Do your research on goats. Like, join the 911 goat page on Facebook and you'll see what I mean. Like, perfectly fine in the morning and like a hot mess by 5 o'clock. And I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying it to be realistic. Do your research and know what you're getting into before you get into it. Not, oh, I think I'm going to go out and I'm going to get, 10 goats. And now you have all these goats and you're like, okay, now what? I'm telling you, it adds up, and it's to have minerals and just all of the things. Just please do your research. I know that the world is crazy right now, and I know that homesteading is like this moment, and I love that, and I hope you do it. But find another homesteader, because I'm telling you, in this area, granted, it's a pretty rural area, but I literally just hooked up with someone and we did a podcast, which if it's posted by the time I do this video, I'll link it below. And it's just kind of getting to talk to her and to bounce ideas off of her. And let me tell you, she is a go-getter. I'm more reserved, but she is a go-getter. And I admire her so much. But I guarantee there is at least one person in your community or within like a 10-20 minute drive that is willing to be like, hey, if you reach out to them and say, hey, I'd really like to learn about chickens, and I noticed you had chickens, could I maybe come out and see your setup? I would venture to say they'll probably say yes. Maybe not all of them, some. But like, I know my neighbors, she's got goats, and we had an issue once, and I called her and I was like, hey, this is what's going on. How do you, like, I feel like this is like a good course of action. What do you think? And she's like, yeah, that's a good idea. And then just swing by and I'll give you, I think it was red cell, which is basically like to kind of help boost. It was after we had a worm thing. And she's like, yeah, I'll give you, a dose of this and give it to your goat. And it all worked out. But I'm telling you, people, if you reach out, I mean, I'm not saying every 20 minutes call and be like, hey. But overall, if it's just a quick like, hey, this is what's going on. This is what I think would be a good idea. What do you think? What's your opinion? I guarantee that they're going to be like, yeah, here's what I would do. And granted, no one's homestead is the same and everyone does things differently, but you have to be open and flexible and to just think like, just be flexible. Because just because you wouldn't do this, and this, you do that, and that, maybe I would do this and that, or a mix of the two. So just be flexible. Take everything with a grain of salt. We're all learning, even people that have been doing this for years and years. I guarantee you there's something new that happens every year. Every single time. So on that note, I'm going to leave it as reach out. Find someone that maybe can do it with you. Maybe you have a best friend. So one of my friends is getting into goats, and I'm still new, but I'm kind of easing her into goats, and she's learning beekeeping. So we're literally going to trade information. I'm going to teach her about goats, and she's going to teach me about beekeeping. And how amazing is that, to build a community where you can just reach out to, and I mean, Facebook makes it and social media makes it to where you can do just about anything because there's always someone. If you put a feeler out there that says, hey, I'm looking for A, B, and C, I'm sure someone, and bartering is such a thing. If you have things that maybe you don't need that someone else can use, I'm telling you, offer to barter. The worst thing they can do is tell you no. So on that note, now that I have all of these things out in the air, think about it. Think it through. Don't just tomorrow wake up and say, I'm going to go get a bunch of animals. Make sure that you have the shelter, the fencing, the feed. Make sure that you can do it, because what happens if maybe you live a half hour away from anywhere that sells feed of any kind? Are you willing to drive the half hour to go get it? So think it through, talk it over, find someone that does it, see what they think. Is it worth it? Like I said, I'm about to have to raise my price on eggs right now. I'm selling them $3 a dozen, and I'm going to have to go to $4 just because the price of feed is ridiculous. I've done my math now, and I know, like, oh, I lost a little bit of money on chickens, and it would make more sense for me to shrink my flock and only feed my family, or raise it $1. Trust me, the people that are sticking with you, they would still rather, like, my eggs are still cheaper than Walmart, even once I raise them to $4. So you still get a better quality for a better price. yes, raising prices sucks. I have been dreading this for weeks. I should have done this like at least 4 or 5 months ago, and I just keep putting it off and putting it off. But February 1st, it's happening, and I hate it. I would love to just be able to be like, you get eggs and you get eggs and you get eggs, but I can't do that. Not when you're going at the homestead way that we are, because I need an income in my garden to cover the cost, and I need an income from my chickens to cover their cost. Or it's just silly to have so many. I did actually sell 6 of my laying hens to my friend, the one that's getting into goats, because she got her chicken coop already, and no one around here is selling chicks. So I sold her 6 of my 2-year-olds, and that's something else we do rotate, and I'll get into that in a different video, because chickens have the most, like, they pretty much have laid the majority of their eggs by the time they're 2. If you use supplemental lighting, you're cutting into that. Chickens only have so many eggs that they lay in their lifetime. You can get them all in the beginning with kind of, I don't want to say cheating, but with that, using a heat light or a light of some sort, they're going to lay more. Or you can get, a couple a day. And again, I feel like that's the difference between, are you trying to make a profit off of them, or are they just like more of a pet? But ours, we don't use supplemental lighting. They do have a heat light out there only if it gets below like 10 degrees. Like when it was really, really that negative 35 wind chill, we turned it on for 2 hours. That's all they got all winter so far. It is a safety hazard. I do not recommend it. But like I said, it was either that or I was afraid that we were going to lose our flock. So it was when we were awake, I was home. I literally checked it like 100 times a day during those 2 hours. So I felt more okay. I do not recommend heat lamps, period. So there's that, but I plan on selling every 2 years. I'll bring in probably every year I'll bring in 20 birds ish, and I will sell 20 birds that are my 2-year-old layers. And that's only because I sell out my eggs, and this way, and I'm not going to charge for like a full priced hen. Like I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, here's like $20 for this hen that's 2 years old. It'd probably be like 15 versus, a 6-month-old chick that's got their whole lives that just started laying. That one will be a little bit more just because it's a higher quality. It's not necessarily even a higher quality. They're just younger and they're going to produce more eggs. So this summer, when my chicks are starting to lay, because we're starting early, I literally have, I think, 18 days to go in my incubator for my first round of 12 chicks for the year. And I ordered 20 from Hoover Hatchery. I think Hoover Hatchery. And I've never ordered chicks in the mail before. Plus, I'm sure at Tractor Supply I'll catch where, they have a killer deal on chicks where they're marked down to like $1. I'm sure I'll pick up some of those too. Oh, and that's another thing. Chicks, they don't start laying when they're a month old. You have to buy them, feed them all that chick starter before you even get an egg. So your first egg is going to have cost like $500 at like a minimum. So that's always fun too. Or you can pay more and get one that's already laying if you can find them, because right now it's nuts. I plan on selling some of my barnyard mixes that I'm hatching as chicks because I have a bunch of chickens coming. Well, I have a bunch of chickens and several chicks coming. Plus, like I said, I'm sure I'll buy some. It's just with the craziness of eggs right now, the that flu thing that took out all those birds, all of these hatcheries are trying to, the world has to get like its chicken population back up to get the price of eggs back down. And with everyone getting into chickens right now, I feel like just, and again, that's an income. can I maybe, you know, if I put 12 in and 6 hatch, because that don't count chickens before they hatch. Just because you put them in an incubator, maybe they weren't fertilized. Maybe they weren't, look, who knows? But, you know, if I hatch 6 and I sell them for $5 each, there's $30. There's 2 bags of feed. 2 bags. I go through that in less than a week. So again, something to think about. But on that note, we're gonna end it on super cute little chicks. Oh, the chicks that I ordered, in case you're wondering, because I feel like someone will ask, I got 5, because 5 was the minimum of like each breed. I got 5 Isa Browns, or ISA Browns, but 5 Isa Browns. I got 5 Mystic Onyx. I got 5 Speckled Sussex, and 5 of the Polish, the buff Polish laced, Polish buff laced. And I got all females. So are the Polish gonna be great egg layers? Probably not, but the Isa Browns are amazing egg layers. So they'll kind of balance out. That's something else. Do your research on the breeds, because some chickens lay really, really well. Like the Isa Browns lay 300 eggs a year versus Americanas that lay really pretty eggs. That's where you get like the blues and the greens, but you're only gonna get like 250, maybe 200, 250. So weigh out, do you want the pretty eggs? Do you want large eggs, small eggs, white eggs? You know, 4 eggs a week or 4 eggs a day. Okay, no chicken lays 4 eggs a day, but you get what I'm saying. If you have a flock of 5, are you gonna get, you know, 10 eggs a week? Or are you gonna get a lot more, a lot less? So do your research on the breed. Do your research on if they're cold. If you live up north, the chickens that have the big pretty combs, the thing up top, they can get frostbite. So maybe you need a comb more like a rose comb where they're very small. Again, something to think about. And I know, look, thank you for sticking around with me this long. I know I bounced around quite a bit. If you are still here and you have not subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. We are growing by leaps and bounds, and I'm so excited. I have a lot that I want to share and teach and learn and just grow. And I would love for you to click the little bell to do all of that with me so that you don't miss any videos. And although my son is outside playing basketball right now, I'm gonna do this without him, and he's gonna be mad about it, but that's okay because he loves me, and I'll give him like a cookie or something. But don't have a good day, have a great day. See you next time. Bye.